like to start with the next discussion, inviting first on our stage our moderator for this session, inviting Mr. Mayank Khemka of Khemka Group of Companies to join us on the stage. Mr. Khemka is the moderator. He's chairing this session for us. The panelists on this session talking about bullion trading and supply in India, Mr. Satish Bansal from MD Overseas. Also inviting Mr. Manish Goyal, Scotia Bank, Mr. Raj Kumar S. from Sequel Logistics, Mr. Harish Pawani of Bin Sub Jewelers, and Mr. Samir Shah of NCDX. So ladies and gentlemen, have a great discussion ahead. Mr. Khemka, 45 minutes, all inclusive, the views and the interaction. I leave the session in the hands of Mr. Khemka.
Good morning everyone. We have an elite panel today to discuss about bullion trading and supply to us, what are the future opportunities, what are the difficulties we are facing, and I have an elite panel to discuss about the same. The first issue which has been affecting all of us in the bullion trade, it has been the import of jewelry under the FTA agreement. As you are aware that under the FTA agreement which we had with Thailand and Indonesia, the gold jewelry is coming at 1% duty. I think this has seriously impacted the trade, and I would like to have my panelists' view on the same. First, I would like to ask Mr. Satish Bansal regarding his views on the same, that should this import of jewelry under FTA continue, should it be placed in the negative list, what precautions should we take for the future?
I don't see any harm in jewelry being allowed under FTA, but it's the duty structure which is impacting. What is happening in this country is we have a duty structure of 10% on the finished product, 8 or 9% on the raw material which is jewelry, and 1% on the finished product jewelry. So this is totally irrational. What they should do is they should bring this 1%, as jewelry is allowed to be imported at 16% duty, but under ASEAN this is allowed at 1%. So it should be rational, it should be allowed at 16%. There is no need to put it in the negative list.
Mr. Harish Pawani, what has your experience been on FTAs when globally have these FTAs been in place where you would have had a concessional duty on gold or jewelry, or is it typical to the ASEAN region where this is happening?
No, there hasn't been much impact as far as the wine market is concerned. Only thing, probably we lost some of the business because cheap stuff was coming here. But I do agree with Satish. Will not be on the negative list for the next. I would still request the government that going forward on the bullion and jewelry industry before they sign an FTA with somebody else, they at least check with the industry what are needed. Otherwise, if you are going to leave a loophole, then do not blame the industry.
The next point we come to is the change in duty structure. As we are aware that the duty of gold as well as the rupee changes every 15 days. This has created a lot of operational problems both at the custom levels as well as the trader level. I would like to understand from Mr. Satish Bansal regarding what are the problems what we face at the trader level with regard to this change in duty from the normal, the duty which is changing every 15 days. Is there any suggestion? Should we get it to an ad valorem level, or what should we do about that?
It is a welcome idea that if we have some sort of a fixed duty for a specified period, what is happening is the duty is getting changed on account of either the exchange rate or the tariff value itself. I don't know whether it's changing 15 days or every 21st day, and so difficult to predict that. Markets already know that the gold price have come down, duty is going to become lower, markets have gone up, so duty is going to go higher. So it's very difficult, it's becoming very difficult to trade businesses there. And moreover, it creates problem with the customs in the sense, duty is assessed in the morning, the notification comes at 7 o'clock in the evening, and duty is made effective from the previous night. So customs have to issue notices, and we have to reply, or we have to pay the differential duty, or we have to apply for the refund. And at the same time, it creates problem with the buyers also. We have an understanding that we are going to charge you the applicable rate of duty. Applicable rate of duty as of what time? Instead of day, it has now become as of what time. So which is very difficult. So it will be a good idea to have a fixed duty kind of a thing for a specified period.
I would like to know from you, Mr. Manish, as well, that you being one of the largest suppliers as a nominated agency, what difficulty you face in this change of duty structure?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Bansal. The idea of keeping the duty fixed for a definite tenure of time will really help the trade in better planning in terms of stock requirements, logistics, and also with the customs. as you rightly said, there have been instances where the consignment is cleared in the morning and the notification comes in the evening, and then we have to sit and sort out the old notices being issued by customs and all. So I think this will be the step in the right direction, which will help the entire trade.
I would like to add suggestions. So this is not something which I do face, like these people face on every consignment they import. But maybe the government could be looking at a 3-month average and do it so the duty doesn't at least stay same almost for the 3 months, but the average will take care of the price fluctuation, whether in the price of bullion or in case of a rupee.
But I think in that case, what happens is that the rupee needs to be adjusted because it's just not for gold, it is for all items. So probably rupee, can there be a suggestion where rupee changes every month or every bi-monthly and gold can be done on a quarterly basis?
I think it's better if we propose for a fixed duty. It can be an average of both gold and dollar rupee for a definite period of time and applicable for the next time period.
So we go back to the old system of an ad valorem duty where we had a fixed slab of duty, which could be 10% at prevailing rate. So we could fix a slab of 2.5 lakhs or 3 lakhs per kg.
Yeah, and in the averaging method, the government will not also lose out on the duty. Suppose the gold prices are going up, then the next period for which the duty is fixed will be on the higher side. Government will capture its revenue potential on the imports.
In case of gold, the duty is instantly passed on into the market. It's not like any other commodity where the market can absorb that. Here it has to be translated instantly into the market. So it's better that we have some fixed kind of a duty.
I'd like to ask Mr. Sameer on that. Recently you had launched a contract which was without the custom duty. So was it because you were facing a similar problem in your main contract which was including the custom duty, that is why the need to launch a contract without the custom duty, or what was the rationale behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a demand from, the gold bullion industry has a variety of types of players. There are importers, there are bullion traders, there are jewelers, there are retail traders, there are arbitrageurs. There's a whole section of people, and different participants had a different need. And because of this ever-changing and ever-dynamic customs duty component, it was making it very difficult for a certain section of people to really, understand what is going on. How do I peg my risk in gold to the actual international price? And hence, we came out with a specific contract to cater to that section of trade, and it's been very useful. It's proven successful. Its utility has been proven in the marketplace. So I do believe that the success of that contract goes to show that there is a need for a stable customs duty regime that, as Satish ji and as colleagues on the panel have already said before.
The next we come to logistics. Logistics is a very important portion, and we have Mr. Rajkumar on our panel. We like to understand from him specifically logistics. Are any issues being faced by you which you would like to make a representation to the government, or is everything fine on the logistics space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think logistics certainly has a lot of constraints, challenges in the Indian scenario. And of course, the changes in the requirements that are also coming about in terms of the regulations, in terms of where the refineries are being set up, for example, movement of refineries to Uttarakhand, for example, which has happened in the last couple of years, where a typical logistics company doesn't have a hub or a network. So one needs to quickly put together a network which is consistent, safe, reliable on a day in and day out basis. So, just to touch upon a few more points in terms of GST as well as the monetization scheme as well that the panel has been talking about. There are three key elements in terms of logistics. One is the service and serviceability which comes with the network. So we need to be available and present and to be able to reach the locations that the bullion industry wants. And what the bullion industry wants sometimes is a subset or coincides with what the jewelers want, and also with some of the other needs of a logistics industry. For example, locations like Rajkot or a Pantnagar or a Salem are typical jewelry markets, where our need for a logistics service has to be present. Hence, the reach and the serviceability is important. And from a GST perspective, of course, in case of GST coming about, it's certainly going to smoothen the whole flow of the products and logistics. Probably we may not need as many permits. Somebody talked about India being 31 countries. It literally is, and the logistics is the first element in the whole chain who faces the brunt of the requirements of permits. I can give you an example. For example, the movement between Delhi and Pantnagar that we do for a few of the refiners. The online website of the government where we need to go and log on and declare the movement needs to be done on a daily basis. Okay, so a lot of times the website doesn't work, right? For 2-3 hours the website is down, and there is a time frame that needs to be fulfilled. For example, for the products to reach the refining location, there is also time constraint from a safety perspective. The moment a 2-3 hour delay gets us into then operating the entire movement in the night. There is also a constraint that the same vehicle, once you put in the number, you can't use the same vehicle number till the next 24 hours, right? So, and when the, when you put in the number in the website at 4 o'clock from Pantnagar, it cannot go back to Delhi and use the same vehicle back. So you need to have another vehicle. So there are immense, challenges practically on the ground as far as the logistics is concerned, and even from the monetization scheme, I think it's very, very important for logistics to fill that gap, to be able to do the collection from the collection centers, from the customers. But of course, with the advent of e-commerce, for example, we are reaching the customer's doorstep. We are delivering jewelry at the doorstep of the customer, doing a cash on delivery, for example, for the jewelry customer. So the landscape is changing, as we speak with new opportunities coming about, and it's important for us as an industry to partner, to be cognizant of what's going on, and that's one of the reasons why we are also here, and of course join with the industry key players, and also make some representations with the government. I can go on with a few more constraints. For example, Pasara licensing itself is another big challenge for use of armed guards, which needs to be taken with the government in terms of clarity on what constitutes usage for self-consumption, providing service for a customer, and so on and so forth. So a lot of challenges, but of course we view it as an opportunity, and we work along with our customers as well as other stakeholders. But still a lot of work to be done.
The next we come to the issue of smuggling. According to a WGC report, around 200 to 250 tons of gold is coming to India through the smuggling route, and that is accounting for a duty loss of around 6,000 crores. So we should probably bring our duty structure to such a rate which could be duty neutral. I would like to have first Mr. Harish Pavani's view. Being an outsider, he would be controlling the Dubai market. He would be aware as to, is these figures of 200, 250, 150, is that amount of gold coming through that official channel? Are you feeling that in the UAE market as well, that's being routed from there to the Indian market?
But first of all, I am not controlling the market, sir. I just want to make sure.
Sorry, I mean being a major player in the UAE market.
Second thing, calling in spade a spade is also an issue. If you tell a smuggler that he is never going to tell you he's in a smuggling trade. The respectable one is that they are in a re-exporting market. So he is basically running a business as a re-exporter. But the figure of about 200 tons from all over the world, with of course the whole GCC area, a very credible one. Dubai probably will be playing definitely a major part. To disincentive, there is an incentive right now. So if the government were to reduce the duty, positive to a level whereby it offsets the loss from the 10% to certain 6-7%, that would automatically reduce the input which is coming from the other end.
I must correct you. See, when you say 10%, those who smuggle, they don't have to pay VAT also. So actually, effectively, it's not 10%, 11.3%.
So do you suggest, Mr. Bansal, any specific rate we should come at, or we should suggest to the government so that the duty should be reduced to a particular rate where you feel that probably the smuggling activity will not happen at a particular rate, or will it happen irrespective?
But I don't think the smuggling would stop even at 7% or 8%.
Because there's still a lot of incentive.
Yeah, those who indulge into this trade, for them 5%, 6%, I think will be a good margin. So it's very, very difficult unless until the enforcement agencies they have to check. Yes, I do have a point suggestion to the government. Whenever they are making the policy with regard to duties or with regard to import, it's my feeling that they are not involving the 10 top export suppliers or the 10 top importers from the country. Probably my feeling is that they are getting a representation from Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, which has nothing to do with the bullion trade. So it would be better if the government involves the top 10 suppliers or the top 10 importers from the country, what kind of difficulties they face, what kind of duty structure should be, what should be done. So that would definitely give some input about the market to the government.
Next, we move on to the bullion trading in India. The highlight and the key burning issue right now is the GST, which was expected now to come from 1st April, whether it will come from 1st April or a little, but I think as everyone understands, GST is a thing to come in. We had Mr. Rajan who was supposed to join us, and probably he's not feeling that well, but we'll take this question to him because he's been on various forums on GST. Could you enlighten us as to how GST will affect the bullion trade, and is there any sort of representation we should be given to him?
I'm not an expert on GST, but the burning issue as far as GST is concerned is the fact that the word manufacture has been taken out of it. It's goods and services tax. So to give you a very simple example, in the normal trade, as we understand, as a retail jeweler, when you buy gold from, say, a bank or from the market, you give it to some goldsmith to manufacture it. At that time, you issue an issue receipt. Once the product is finished to jewelry, he in turn returns it back to the jeweler with a return receipt. All that is gone. Now, under the new GST rule, what has to happen is when you give the gold to the goldsmith or the artisan for manufacture, you have to raise an invoice. That invoice could be based on the notional price of gold and rupee on that particular day. Similarly, after a week or 10 days, when he manufactures it into jewelry and he returns it back to you, he has to raise an invoice. The objective of the government under this whole GST is to get to the bottom of the pyramid and widen the tax base to such an extent that everybody who is involved in the trade has to bear the burden of the tax. So there is, instead of VAT and CST, now there is going to be SGST, which is state GST, CGST, which is central GST, and IGST. So the percentages that we are going to talk about, or which the government is thinking about, is normally for other commodities they are talking about anywhere between 20 to 25%. Now in the case of gold, given that it's a high value item, one of the issues that was debated is whether it makes sense for the trade, the industry, to make an appropriate recommendation to the government to try and convince them that given the product is of a very high value, perhaps they should look at a lower GST for that. But that said, even if it is a lower GST, it was felt, especially by industry experts, that it will never be less than 14 to 15%. But I'm not sure whether the bullion associations and the jewelry associations across India have attempted to make that representation of.
But at 14-15%, when at 11% we are seeing so much coming through the official sources, at even a higher rate, even a 14-15% will further...
I know, but that was something which the government debated, and look at it from the government's perspective for a moment. 4 or 5 years back, the duty on gold was 1%. Within the last 2 years, the duty from 1% has increased to 10%. Has that had made any dent in demand? Not really, if you look at it. Because the duty structure, the cost, is nothing but a pass-through. At the end of the day, even today with 10% duty, an ordinary Indian lady or a household that wants to buy gold, they don't look at it and say, oh, what is gold price, what is rupee dollar, how much is the duty, how much is the VAT. If I ask my wife, she would turn around to me and say, what is gold trading today? 30,000 per 10 grams. Oh, it's a little expensive. Let's wait till it comes to 27,000. She is least bothered about what is the GST part of it, what is the duty element, what is the VAT element, has the Chinese fiasco, the rupee has depreciated by 10%? No. So, from a government's perspective, they think ultimately it is the consumer who wants to buy gold. So, if he is willing to pay that price, it doesn't matter.
Do you agree with Mr. Rajan's view that a duty of 14-15% will not make much of an impact on the gold rate?
But I completely agree with Mr. Rajan. See, the end consumer, they don't really ever ask their deal. Maybe 50% of them don't know what the rate of duty is, what the dollar rupee rate is. They are only concerned with what is the final price. If there is a drop of say 20% in the gold price, they are happy because they are getting it at say 24,000 rupees.
But at the duty of 15%, do you think that some of the more official trade will move towards the unofficial trade, or no? What we have reached a peak is a peak, and now nothing more will happen.
See, these are two parallel trades which are happening, parallel economies. Those who indulge into this, they will continue to do this, whether it's the duty is 6% or 14%. Those who are not doing, they will never do it, whether the duty is 1% or 15%. Is my view. I mean 30, maybe 35% people may opt for the smuggling, but those who are not into it, they will never think of it.
And I think one more issue in GST which will come in is this 1% interstate tax which we are keeping it. So for a bullion trade, what we were looking at a seamless flow of bullion throughout the country, that purpose will be defeated.
Yeah, that is another thing which you need to represent, because that 1% tax which they are going to levy, that is not said madam. So that is a cost. Ultimately, that's going to be a cost, and 1% is quite an expensive thing. Assuming average price of gold is $1,200, that's $12. So that's something. But the important issue is, we are not very sure as a banker that whether appropriate recommendations have gone. There are other industries we know for sure, the steel industry, cement industry, automobile industry, they have all gone with representations outlining their cases as to what they need. But I'm not aware, perhaps they have, but I'm not aware whether the jewelry industry has done anything about it.
I think we should sit after the conference and probably make a specific representation to the government, because GST is a very important issue on the same.
Here one point we are missing in GST. Actually, as yesterday we discussed, GST is central excise plus VAT. You are talking about the 14.5 or 18%. But in bullion, you see, in bullion import, central excise is 0, custom duty is 10%. So somebody has to recommend the government, when they introduce GST, the custom duty should become first make 0, then GST can be introduced. Otherwise, if anything miscommunication with the department and industry, if they are not taken care of the custom notification, your resultant duty is 10% custom duty plus 14.5, 18% is the GST will come. Please take this issue to the concerned persons.
Sure, we'll take that into mind. The next point we come is to that should the Indian bullion industry develop an Indian gold standard for delivery. We had the LBMA standard which is worldwide, but we understand that it's very difficult for a new refinery to straight away go to an LBMA standard refinery with a 5-year operations and a minimum amount of tonnage. So that makes a case for developing an Indian gold delivery standard. I think I'll put this question to Mr. Sameer, because he recently launched a contract with for delivery of Indian gold delivery bars. So what are the parameters you took into consideration, and how should we frame a framework for an Indian gold delivery standard?
Yeah, thanks. I think it's a very crucial question and very relevant and pertinent at this point in time, given the given all the discussions that have happened in the last day and today, and in the context of the gold monetization scheme, and in the context of import discussions that are constant. Our discussions with the industry, and there are always going to be two views, two sides to the coin. But our view is that certainly the LBMA standard is the leading standard in the world. It is very relevant for a particular type of requirement, which is a wholesale market in London, right? Which is not the be all and end all of global bullion trading, especially in emerging countries like India, China, where consumption is retail driven, where households form a large part of participation in the bullion market. There is a need to recognize a India Good Delivery Standard. There is a need to produce bullion in India. Of course, not compromising global standards, not compromising quality, purity standards at all, but there is an opportunity to create a whole new class of refiners in India. And to serve that need at NCDX, we created an India Good Delivery Standard, which is absolutely world class in its specifications. It looks at the technical parameters, it looks at financial parameters, it looks at customer satisfaction. So it's a three-pronged due diligence that we did. The technical referees that we appointed were world class referees. It involved people who had 40 years of experience in the world bullion market, including Andy Smith, who's here at the conference. He participates in the LBMA market. Then there's Mr. Saha, who worked for 40 years for the India Government Mint. So these are the sort of technical referees who have done due diligence on about 15 refineries. And we have come to a stage where we have accredited 3 refineries as a starting point, which is Edelweiss, Kundan and Shirpur. And these 3 refineries, in addition to the LBMA refineries, now are able to offer good delivery bars in the Indian market. And we've seen that in the few months, it's early days. This is going to take a long time to educate people and to give confidence to the investors. But we've seen that 20% of bar sales that have happened, or business that has happened on NCDX since launch over the last 3 years, are India Good Delivery bars. So it proves that there is an acceptance in the industry and in the community that if they are proper accreditation standards, world-class accreditation standards, then we are able to produce, manufacture bullion in the country to global standards. And I think this certainly needs to be encouraged.
So certainly, I think this is an excellent move by NCDX to promote the local refiners so that they get a platform where they can do the deliveries. I'd like to ask from Mr. Harish Pavani, can we learn from any Dubai experience on that how can we make the standards more robust, or any suggestions on that?
Actually, it has always been fortunate enough to work with Samir even in Dubai at IIGC. And actually it is called for, I would request that the industry gets together and starts a standard, because as Samir mentioned, the standard, the LBMA regulation is more actually for large settlements happening among the banks and the central banks and others. And for any refinery to become, it's quite a bit of a catch-22 situation. So if India were to start, and that was the thing that Dubai also started its own standard, where refineries initially were included and newer refineries are joining in, and it has actually now become that you could deliver the Dubai Good Delivery on the exchange and are traded freely within where the banks or the financial community plus the bullion dealers and the jewelers and everybody else. And I would actually encourage that the same standards, or not similar standard, but something similar which is prevalent in India, where an Indian standard would be developed and eventually this standard will be accepted all over the place, and it will encourage refineries to come forward. And actually what you are going to see is the standardization of the products. And that's, I think, the technical stuff, of course, the exchanges will take care of it. But everybody, at least the consumers or even the bankers, which Rajan had earlier mentioned on the gold monetization scheme, that, what is my guarantee, which I understand from a banker's perspective. So if you would have an Indian standard, in that particular case, it will be coming from an accredited refinery that will give a comfort to them.
So what exactly has been the Dubai experience? Has people still prefer the LBMA, or Dubai delivery goods are considered at par with LBMA and
No, at par. In fact, Dubai Good Delivery is the most preference one. The preferred one is actually locally everybody prefers that one, and we have no issues with any of, at least the ones which are accredited refineries.
I think that's a good experience for the Indian refiners, that if we can develop our own standards and treat it as par, we don't need to rely only on LBMA goods. We have our own standards to follow, and that could be widely accepted in the market.
I'll also make a point. See, we ourselves have imported hundreds of tons in the past few years. My experience is nobody bothers in this country about this London good delivery or a Turkish good delivery or a Dubai gold delivery. as long as you can ensure that the product is up to the purity which is specified, which is marked on the bar, but you can guarantee that nobody bothers about the others. Here, no one is interested what the size is or what the shape is or what the color is. London Good Delivery is good because they are is a trading center. London is a trading center. Zurich is a trading center. They are producing the bar. They are sending across them. Here, the product that comes into the country is consumed here. So, end customer, I mean, the wholesalers, they are definitely not bothered about the quality, the finish, and all that. And consumer, and if you are the people those charge say 5%, 7%, people are not willing to pay that kind of a premium for a better finish. What is required is the specification. It must meet the specification. If it is 995, it must meet the specification of 995 or 39. That is more important than any standard 45.
Next we come to the PAN requirement for bullion purchase. I think this has been a lot of demand from the jewelers, that earlier it was rupees 5 lakhs where you can make a cash payment for jewelry and 2 lakhs for gold bullion. In this budget it has been proposed to 1 lakh. Though the notification has not come yet, but there has been a lot of upsurge regarding that should it be reduced to 1 lakh or should it be maintained as status quo. I would like to ask Mr. Manish first, that do you get some complaints from your jewelers on this issue, or is it okay either 1 lakh or 5 lakh, 2 lakh?
See, as a bank, all the jewelers who deal with us, this concern doesn't come to us. I think it is more for the trade rather than from the bank's point of view. But it's like an independent, I would say that let the trade continue the way it is without disturbing with it, because there has been lots of changes which have happened in the last 2 years. So let the trade continue the way it is.
Mr. Satish Bansal, your customers are happy with it, or they want any change in it?
The same league. We are also. I don't come across a customer. We are not selling in cash, so I won't be able to answer. But my feeling is, it's like duty, whether it's 14% or even if you make everything has to be sold by check. People will ultimately get used to it. Those who have to buy gold, they know that they can't buy it in cash. They will get used to it.
So you think that the market will finally adapt to it? There might be a problem for 6 months, 1 year, then finally market will adapt to it.
Yeah, it's more of a demand from the jewelers rather than the consumers.
Than the bullion dealers.
I just want to add something. I mean, the way rupees itself is depreciating, and 100,000 really doesn't have any value. From the gold perspective, doesn't even have a value, much less. So I would, hopefully the government should, they should raise. I mean, that's what I would recommend. Yeah, the gold price is going up the way rupee is going.
And lastly, we'll come to the issue of the CTT. There's been a lot of debate from the government treating the stock exchanges at par with the commodity exchanges and impacting CTT, which is, I think, linked to a sharp decline in the volumes. I'd like to put this question specifically to Mr. Samir, that with the CTT, what are you seeing the impact on the exchanges? It's good, it's bad. I know it's bad, but what is the sort of impact and what is the sort of decline in volumes you've been experiencing for the same?
I think certainly it has knocked out liquidity quite significantly in those commodities where CTT was applicable. And liquidity is king, right? So if you want to give hedgers a good experience to hedge and reduce their basis risk, and eventually, down the line, we want banks to come and hedge. If the gold monetization scheme is successful, we will have banks taking on a whole new type of risk. And given the merger of the two regulators, there is now a very autonomous, credible, regulator, which hopefully gives confidence to RBI and to the banks to allow them to hedge on domestic exchanges. Liquidity, the question of liquidity will become paramount, and at that point in time, encouraging building up of liquidity is going to be critical. Certainly, the CTT issue will need to be dealt with soon as the institutions come into play, and to give hedgers a good hedging experience and reduce their basis risk.
Thank you, Jeff Rhodes, Z Gold. This is for Samir and I guess for the rest of the panel. But first of all, congratulations on what you've done, taking the initiative to credit local refineries in India, and the general kind of view of the panel, which seems to be that there should be an Indian good delivery standard, or not exactly the same as London or Dubai, but with its own special approach. But you're just one of the exchanges here. I think it would be good that if there was a kind of consensus amongst exchanges to accept the good refineries here. And so I believe there are 14 refineries now. Amazing.
20 plus.
That was yesterday.
You know, I mean,
14 was yesterday.
yeah, it's breeding like rabbits. It's fantastic. But I do think it's important that the exchanges in India really have a consensus and accept the refineries. What do you think are the chances, I know it's your competitors, of your competitors following your lead?
I mean, we would be very happy to work together. In fact, the only reason why we started this is because there was an absence of something like this. And I think now that we have started, we are not bound to that. The key is what works for the customer. The key is to create a refining standard that is acceptable to the customer. And I was delighted to know, which, my mistake, my ignorance, that BIS already has a standard IS 1417 for at least bullion, and they have been working on accreditation of refineries as well. So I'm hoping that there would be some convergence, some consensus that would emerge, and we can all work together as one common industry in the interest of the customer.
Thank you. Good.
The first question is that should we remove CTT and lower transaction cost of hedging on Indian commodity exchanges? First option is do we agree, second option is disagree. We can start on the voting. We have 88% saying that we should remove CTT. So I think that's a consensus view that its decreased volumes. Mr. Sameer would be very happy with that, and so would everyone else, that probably having a CTT just increases our transaction cost and is leading to a low liquidity on the exchanges. A second question, customs duty on gold should be changed from ad valorem to specific duty, what we had discussed in the panel. Does the audience also agree with it, or do we disagree, or we cannot comment? %, again say that agree that the duty should be changed from ad valorem to a specific duty. There is a strong case for reduction in customs duty from the present 10% to a rate that would eliminate smuggling and encourage official transaction. Do we agree that the duty should be reduced? We do not agree, or we cannot comment. Again, 73% says that the duty should be reduced to at least a revenue neutral rate where at least it will eliminate smuggling as well as the impact on the government on the revenue, but is not much. Finally, I'd like to thank all my elite panel for enlightening us and for having such a wonderful discussion.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Khemka, for that very, very interesting session. Sir, I would request you to present a memento of participation for each one of our participants, and we would request you to present the first memento to Mr. Satish Bansal. A big thank you going out to Mr. Manish Goyal. Manish Goyal ji must hear a louder round of applause because shortly Scotia Bank will be serving you lunch for this afternoon. So can we please hear it for that? Also, the next memento for Mr. Rajkumar S., Mr. Harish Pawani, Mr. Sameer Shah. I would like to request Mr. Martin Smith from Royal Mint to please join us on the stage to present a memento to Mr. Mayank Khemka for conducting this session so beautifully and completing it within the stipulated time.